So let's start with a question that seems incredibly simple but actually leads us straight to the heart of the mystery. Why animals? Why did Upper Palaeolithic artists obsessively paint, carve and scratch animal forms on the cave walls of Europe from about, 35,000 years ago onwards? I mean, you'd think they'd be interested in all sorts of things, the trees, the landscape, even each other. But overwhelmingly, it's the animals that leap out at us. That's one of those things we touched on before, but today we really need to dig into why it matters. If you walk through the great caves like Lascaux or Chauvet, and I actually did get the chance to see Lascaux's replica years ago, you instantly spot bison, horses, those antlered stags. And should you stand there with only a torch for light, you'd almost feel your brain tune in, searching for life in the shadows. There's this instant, almost primal thrill of recognition. I realised then it's not just history on those walls, it's something older, something in the way we see. According to Derek Hodgson, whose work we keep returning to for good reason, this isn't just some random choice or a quirk of ancient taste. It's wired into us. Our brains evolved specifically to prioritise the recognition of animals, because, let's face it, that was pretty crucial for survival. You had to spot prey, recognise predators, maybe even identify which animal was likely to stomp you if you got too close. So it's not so much that Paleolithic people only cared about animals, but that their brains, and our brains, became fine-tuned across millennia to notice and remember them. This focus on animals in art stuck around too. It's visible in Mesolithic and Neolithic times, and really it's not hard to see animal symbolism in modern cultures either, is it? There's something deeper going on than just culture, something biological. That's the anchor for the whole episode, and frankly, it makes every animal figure on a cave wall feel, well, just a touch more intimate and profound, don't you think? So, here's the thing, it isn't just about hunting either, even though that's obviously a piece of the puzzle. The obsession with animal imagery carried on regardless of which species people actually ate, which always trips me up, because you'd think they'd only bother drawing dinner. But, as Hodgson lays out, this enduring preoccupation grew out of much more than survival on a plate. It's the evolutionary arms race, if you like, between humans and the animal world, both as hunters and as hunted, that shaped our whole perceptual system. And that's what we're exploring today, how vision, cognition, and representational art all trace back to being animals in an animal-filled world. All right, let's zoom in a bit more on how exactly our brains manage this trick of instantly spotting animals, especially when the conditions are anything but ideal. Enter sign-stimuli. Now, if that sounds technical, don't worry. At its heart, it's a pretty straightforward idea. Sign-stimuli are those specific visual cues, maybe the turn of a horn, the arch of a dorsal line, or the glint of an eye, that trigger an automatic sort of hardwired behavioural response. Tinbergen and Lorenz, classic ethology legends, showed that animals across the board, humans included, are born ready to react to these cues. It's like you don't have to learn that a sudden movement in the grass could be a snake. Your body just sort of handles it. There's genuinely fascinating neuroscience behind this. Studies have picked out brain regions like the left inferotemporal cortex, where animal recognition happens rapidly and, well, almost effortlessly. And what's crazy is that these areas are pretty much specialised for specific things: animals, faces, tools. It's as if, over evolutionary time, our brains developed modules, little toolkits almost, for these important categories. Hodgson actually points out that this modular structure probably solidified during the Pleistocene, back when missing a camouflaged predator could be, fatal. Now, let's talk about exaggeration and why it's everywhere in cave art. If you've noticed, antlers get ridiculously big, dorsal lines are bold, and sometimes prehistoric horses start looking almost cartoonish. These are what scientists call supernormal stimuli. Basically, exaggerating features makes them even more effective at triggering our recognition systems. For instance, a giant set of antlers or an overdrawn jawline is more likely to grab your brain's attention, especially in poor lighting deep inside a cave. In fact, modern experiments with caricatures, so basically exaggerated drawings, show people recognize them faster than realistic images. Our brains are primed to zero in on what matters most, even when the environment offers only a flicker of torchlight or a half-seen outline. It's actually an elegant solution, isn't it? By exaggerating or simplifying, cave artists made sure important animal features popped out, ensuring rapid recognition for anyone glimpsing the painting, perhaps by firelight or in stressful moments. And in all truth, this capacity is so deeply wired into us that even infants and certain animals can recognize creatures from the simplest line drawing. That almost feels like magic, but it's really evolutionary efficiency at work. This brings us neatly into how those ancient artists actually drew the animals. Bold outlines, sometimes truncated bodies, a lot of repetition. These choices weren't just about style, but about hacking into our visual processing. The brain is built to process edges and contours rapidly. If you're trying to spot a mammoth against the gloom of a cave wall, you want the lines to stand out, and that's exactly what the great Palaeolithic artists gave us. There's solid research, actually, from Hodgson and others, showing that even infants and various animal species can recognize other animals based on nothing but outline. So you can forget the details, fur, colour, shading. All you need is a well-drawn edge or curve. This capacity seems universal, hardwired. Even across cultures, people can pick out what's animal and what's not from a few well-chosen lines. I always find it brilliant how the artists often left figures incomplete, like the mammoths in Rouffignac Cave, for instance, where it's really just the head and that dramatic curved back. It's a kind of visual shorthand that our brains instantly latch onto. Some researchers, like Derengowski, dug into the geometry of how outlines can encode the vital 3D shape of an animal, backing up what we know about the visual cortex. It tunes into maximum curves and distinctive angles first. So it's not just about copying what you see, but distilling the animal down to its most revealing contour, which then triggers that whole recognition cascade we talked about earlier. And if you squint a bit at the great Palaeolithic art, it's got a distinctly cartoon-like vibe, abbreviated, sometimes exaggerated, and always striking. That's no accident. Psychological studies even now confirm that caricatures, those cheeky, exaggerated versions of faces or animals, are faster for us to recognize than photographic accuracy. Why? Because the important traits are amplified, making the signal impossible to ignore. So really those ancient artists were way ahead of their time, intuitively using strategies we only properly understood with 21st century neuroscience. So next time you see a bold outline charging across a dim cave wall, you're not just looking at ancient creativity, you're seeing the handiwork of minds shaped by evolution, tapping straight into the most basic, almost irresistible pathways of our own perception. That sense of thrill or startle we feel, that's the echo of countless generations who had to see the world and its animals perfectly clearly or not survive at all. Right, I think that's it for today, but it's far from the end. There's still so much more to dive into about how our brains and our art have shaped each other.